Hello fellow humans and welcome to the Madhouse. I'm Josh and today I want to talk about why I reread books. I will say that as of the day this video goes up, I am currently in Stratford-upon-Avon watching The Tempest performed by the RSC, and I am going to enjoy it immensely. It's my favourite Shakespeare play. So this is why I am just filming another video about 5 minutes after yesterday's, because I do want to just get something up as promised. Anyway, back on to why I reread books. You may have noticed that whenever I do wrap-up videos, there is almost always a book that I have read before in there, and I will explicitly state that I have reread this. There are some books, say like Small Gods by Terry Pratchett, that I reread 2 or 3 times a year. And of course there is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone and the Hogfather that I read every Christmas. But the question I want to ask is why? Because I'm a fast reader and I could get through my TBR pile of, I believe, over 120 books that I have yet to read. Now that is excessive and I really should try to work my way through those, and I do. And I've really tried to restrict my book buying as well as a consequence of this, so that I eventually have to get to them. But even so, if I were to stop reading books I've read already and just focus on the new ones, I would get through them pretty quickly. And then once I've read them, if I liked them, I could keep them, and if I didn't, I could pass them on to people who I think would, or sell them or give them to charity shops and clear up a lot of space. It would benefit me greatly, but I don't. And here's the reason why. You can reread a book for many different reasons. Say, with Harry Potter, I reread this as an attempt to try to recapture the feelings I had the first time I read it. If I'm feeling down, it brings me immense joy. Whoops-a-daisy, I'm knocking my camera over, that's not good, it's too expensive to break. It brings me immense joy to read this, and it does bring back some of those childhood feelings which everybody longs for every now and again. I think everybody can appreciate that desire to escape to a happier or at least simpler time in one's life, when there were no real complications or responsibilities that one had, and your only thoughts were, oh, what's going to happen at school tomorrow? Maybe I'll see my friends and I'll play in the playground and then I'll read some Harry Potter. And it makes people immensely happy and can bring them great peace to be able to do so. When I was feeling particularly depressed earlier this year, I found it helped a great deal to bury myself in my old loves, and it brought me a lot of stability when I needed it. Another reason one might reread old books is to gain greater understanding and realise that they are even better than you thought the first time around. Say, with Small Gods by Sir Terry Pratchett, it is now, and has been since I first read it when I was 12-13 years old, my favourite book ever. It is immensely clever. It's a fantastic story about the role of religion in society, and also the nature of religion, whether or not there's any truth behind it, whether the philosophy is worth following regardless of the existence of the deity or not. And it is fascinating. But I thought I had understood all of it, that there was nothing more for me to learn from it. And then a few weeks ago I read Thomas More's Utopia, which is a fantastic piece of, let's call it science fiction, except it predates our current notions of the science fiction genre by about 400 years. This was written, I believe, in 1516, and yet it is still so far advanced of many things that we have today, and it's marvellously done. And I realised after reading this that Sir Terry was so incredibly clever, that he was picking up on the traditions of generations of secular humanists that came before him, and had made references and jokes to things I had never possibly considered. Because yes, there are obvious aspects of religion and Christianity and Greek mythology, but then there's also political satire through the centuries being referenced in here, and so many other issues which I probably have not discovered yet. And now, sadly, because Sir Terry has died, we can never ask him to truly understand everything that was meant to be in there. But with intense study, I intend to find as much of it as I can, because rereading this and rereading something else that helped me to understand it better can only improve one's enjoyment. Another reason you might reread a book is because of circumstances happening in your life, current trends in world events that you think that relate to this book, and it may help you to further understand what is happening at the moment. For example, Not an hour ago, I finished reading Christopher and His Kind by Christopher Isherwood, the autobiographical novel based on his time in Berlin during the 1930s. Can you think of any possible reason the events of the 1930s in Germany might be pertinent to today? Now, maybe I'm falling into, what's it called? Godwin's Law, that's it. It's happening a lot where people use comparisons to the Nazis and to Hitler, but that doesn't necessarily make it untrue, because this resurgence to the right is something that I predicted in 2007 when I was just 11 years old because of the credit crunch, and that there would be a resurgence to either the extreme left or the extreme right to deal with it. And it's taken time, as I predicted it would, and it's scary, because I don't want to be right in this respect, but I feel I am. And things like Brexit and the rise of Pegida in Germany and Trump in the US and Marie Le Pen and her nationalists, fascisty people in France, it's quite scary and could be very, very dangerous. So we have to rise to fight this. And Christopher and His Kind is all about the rise of this thing and the complacency and when people do nothing and let it happen. And it's not that it's a fictionalised account saying you must do this, because that's not Isherwood's style. Because he was there in the 1930s and he did do nothing. He fled. He did nothing to try and protect the people who were already there. He tried to take his lover and failed. And it's really quite saddening. It's also quite shocking to see the levels of complacency which some people have. They say, oh, we must rally behind President Trump now because his failures will be our failures. And I know that this is a bit odd coming from a British person who does not live in the US. But let's face it, American politics is the world's business. It's impossible to avoid that fact, no matter how much I might dislike it. We need to understand the past so we can understand the future. Of course, there is that common adage that people who do not understand history are doomed to repeat it, while historians are doomed to watch other people repeat history. And that may be true, but surely it's better to be forewarned so that you can remove yourself and your loved ones and help to slow its advance, help to save people from it before it gets dangerous. Maybe I'm being melodramatic, but as an LGBT plus person, sort of gay, gender non-conforming, if the far right were to truly make a resurgence and take a foothold in Britain, then my life could be in danger, so I am not going to take it lying down. It's something that needs to be engaged with, and I fully intend to do that. And the final reason is perhaps so that you can come to understand that a book was not good. Say, for example, I'm going to use Christopher Isherwood again, A Single Man, or, well, the entire Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini, or Percy Jackson by Rick Riordan. Now, I enjoy the Percy Jackson series, but they contribute nothing new to the genres of fantasy or magical realism or mythological retellings. These are all ideas that have been done before. It was exciting and fun as a child, but nothing groundbreaking, not as remarkable as I believe them to be. Same goes for these. In fact, rereading them again, it's almost certain that they were a rehash of the classical modern fantasy genre. You can see so much Tolkien in here, it's almost unbearable. It's practically just fanfiction with a few more dragons thrown in. I enjoyed it, but it's not good. And A Single Man is the first book I ever read that made me realise that being gay was an actual thing that existed, and resonated with me on so many levels and made me feel so good to find something like I felt like George was me. But in hindsight, I now see it for what it was. It was a novel written by a lonely old man, and it is not a good book for a young queer person to read as their introduction to the queer world. It is in fact quite harmful in that respect, because when your only conceptions of what it means to be queer are of a lonely old man who, spoiler, dies of a heart attack at the end after spending an entire year of his life being incredibly sad because his lover died in a car crash. It tells the story that being queer is all about death, all about being lonely, about being sad and miserable, and having absolutely nobody around you that you like, no one you can tolerate, simply having to go life on a subsistence basis, making it from day to day and doing absolutely nothing of any meaning. And that poisons your perception of the way the world is, and it teaches you to hate yourself. It meant so much to me in the past, but you have to acknowledge that in the past you were a different person, so what was exactly right for you then is not right for you anymore, or was never right for you, but it was the best that you had at the time, so you made do with it. But you don't have to do that. You can always find something new, especially nowadays. I have access to the internet, something I did not have when I was 13 years old. I had no idea there were other options, and now I do. And if I could speak to my 13-year-old self again, I would tell them, do not pick up that book this time around. If it were possible, I would send back Aristotle and Dante Discovered the Secrets of the Universe to my past self, which I of course couldn't do, because 1, time travel is impossible, and 2, this book was written in 2012, while I first read Christopher and His Kind when, let's see, I was 12 years old, 13 years old. This would have been 2009, so it's a few years before that, and it wouldn't work. But if it were possible, this book would have let me see the possibility of love, of finding people like you, of having friends, not having to be alone, that you don't have to be miserable. And that would have meant the world to me, and it will mean the world to many other people. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please click like, share and subscribe. And of course, let me know, do you reread books, or do you prefer to keep them in exactly the same condition in your mind as they always were? Never changing, never improving, never falling in standards. Because that would be very intriguing to know if it's just me, or if this is a universal, people who feel books have to be read more than once in order to be truly understood and loved and rated for what they truly are. Until next time, tatty byes.